Alright, so today I had an idea. I think, like probably most people, I've been playing around with ChatGTP and a few of those other tools, and I had an idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can use ChatGTP to come up with comp titles. I'm hopeful. I don't know about you, but I don't have a super duper great like memory recall. Once things are sort of like triggered, then I remember them pretty well, but like a little bit of an inattentive ADHD brain, to be honest. I don't know about you, but that's something I struggle with. So trying to come up with titles that are like my book, it is really, really hard for me to just come up with them and be like, oh yeah, well I read books that had all of these things. So that's something I've struggled with. But now that I am going to be querying at the end of the quarter, that's the plan, I need to start working on the comp titles a little bit more thoroughly in my query and all of that stuff. And I just want to make sure I have something good and ready. I know what comp titles I had for when I submitted my books to different projects and had to have, query letters for that. But I think there's a potential for better ones. So what I want to do is try to use GTP to find some books that I can read for comp titles for the book I'm going to query at the end of the quarter, and also for the project I'm working on right now, because it could just be cool to look into it. I do want to add a quick disclaimer, a note. I think this is a pretty well-known recommendation when it comes to comp titles, but don't use books you haven't read. Like, you want to make sure that it really fits, like, the tone and the story, and that you're not putting something in there that's going to do you a disservice. So I'm going to pull up ChatGTP, screen record, and we're going to see if we can figure out how to do this. Alright, so I am not super duper familiar with ChatGTP. Let me move this over slightly. There we go. I am not super duper, I haven't done it for that many things, so I'm not super familiar with the right searching criteria, so we may have to play around with that, but I think we can just probably just say, give me comp titles for this book, sort of thing. Let's try that. Okay, this is maybe not quite right. These books don't really have the same sort of tone. They're also a little bit too big, and they're not necessarily recent, which is something that The Lies of Locke Lamora. I've heard one of the booktubers I watch talks about The Lies of Locke Lamora a lot. The way of This is quite the list of comp titles. Okay. So for things that we actually want to use for comp titles, we want things that aren't like top bestsellers, and we want things that are recent. So let's try what are recent. Let's try that. That sounds identical to what mine is, right? So maybe I should start keeping a list of some of these so I can look into them better. Honestly, not heard of any of these books, I don't think. I might, when I see the covers, I might realize that I do know them. But let's copy them over here to potentials. Okay, and then more. Okay, let's just ask for a few more to get a slightly bigger list here. I feel like that's pretty good. I feel like we'll have to look into these specifically to kind of get a feel if we need to specify, because I think that's going to be the goal here. You want to use the right keywords that are going to matter. Like what really matters in a comp title. Like, I think you want things that are going to show different sides of it, right? Like, you don't want things that are exactly identical to your book, but like, this meets this is pretty popular. Okay, so these are all, I've actually heard of some of these. The Poppy War, The Priory of the Orange Tree, The Unspoken Name, The Wolf of Oren Yarrow, The City We Became. I haven't heard of all of these. I would hesitate to use N.K. Jemisin just because I think she leans into, like, she's a pretty popular name. Like, I feel like that's kind of getting into like top bestseller. Like I think she's won awards and all types of things. So let me copy these over, and I'm going to do this like a couple more times and see if I get a couple more good names, and then we'll see how well these match. Okay, so this is the list of titles that I have to look into. So I'm going to pull up, I guess I'll just pull up Amazon and look at these titles there and read the descriptions and see if I think these are good matches, and then I'll pick the best ones and put them on a reading list unless maybe this query isn't working and we need to try some different word configurations. Let's try that. All right, so the first one here is the gutter prayer. Let's see. It has 1,200 ratings. Does it say when it was published? 2019. So that's 4 years ago. So that might be a little bit long ago. I mean, I don't think this necessarily sounds like a good fit. This doesn't really sound like my book. So I don't think that's a good one. So I'm going to take that off the list. So let's search for the next one, which I think is Black Leopard Red Wolf. It's a pretty cover. Okay, one of Time's 100 best fantasy books of all time. That's pretty fancy. Let's see. 2019 again. It's a little older, maybe a little bit too best-selling. I feel like this is probably not the best choice. This says that it has multiple POVs, mystery and romance. I don't see anything in here that says anything like that. Yeah, no, I don't think this has the right feel, the tone of what we're looking for. So let's try Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. Have I read this? I don't think I've read this. Again, another top 100 fantasy books of all time. When was this out? 2018? So this is even older. Again, doesn't really sound right. I guess the question is also what doesn't sound right. Like, I think maybe the overall plot here is just different. Like, the overall tones of what's trying to happen is very different. And I guess, I don't know, it just doesn't sound that similar. The 10,000 Doors of January. Again, bestseller, finalist for a Hugo Award. Yeah, this is definitely way too renowned. Okay, The Wolf of Oren-Yaro. Stranded in a land she doesn't know with no idea whom she can trust, Talion will have to embrace her namesake. This is interesting. The main character is clearly pretty badass, right? Definitely a warrior, it sounds like. So, because my main character is also, she's a warrior, she's a chief, she is a very good fighter. So I think that fits. So, political intrigue, war, romance, richly detailed worlds, multiple POVs. I don't know who the other POVs are. But this sounds like this could be a potentially good comp title. I have to read it, but I think this is something I would be interested in looking into. So let's keep going. Okay, the unspoken name. This is interesting. A young priestess sentenced to die. I mean, I do have, one of my characters does have a unfortunate type of, I guess, prophecy surrounding her fate. It definitely turns differently than this, so that might not be a good fit because someone might, if I use this as a comp title, it might give them the expectation of how that plotline would go. So, but it's interesting. I think this is a maybe. Okay, Priory of the Orange Tree. I mean, this is a really popular book. I do have this book already. I'm not even going to look at the N.K. Jemisin one because there's no way I can use N.K. Jemisin. Like, that she's just too popular, you know? She's too well known. And honestly, I don't even know if The Priory of the Orange Tree would be. I feel like that's maybe getting into too much bestsellers. Yeah, I purchased a hardcover copy. You can... Is it up there or did I move it? No, it's on that shelf now. It used to be on that shelf, but I moved it over there. The Poppy War. I don't think this would be a good fit. I just think that the focuses here are slightly different than my book and it might be misleading. This is also 5 years ago, which is, I think, definitely too far. So... Okay, The Tiger's Daughter. Let me just see when this came out. 2017? Is that what that is? Oh, is this the whole, like, first beginning? Yeah, this is even older. I don't think I can use a book from 2017, no matter how good of a fit it is. I think that's too old. So let's take that off. 2017, again, that's just not going to be an option. The 9. 2017. Okay, no. (2018), The Armored Saint. Okay, so a lot of these are just too old, so I think I need to specify more how recent I want it, and then maybe I need to try finding comp titles for certain sections. So like maybe like the plot and then maybe the themes and the like tone or the style of it, and trying to get one for each of those might be a better choice. So let me switch back over to doing that and we'll see if we can find some more ideas. Okay, so let me type this out again. So let's try that. That's a little bit more like focusing just on the story of my main character, which I feel like would give a good high level like plot comp sort of a feel. So let's see what we get from this. The Bone Jar Daughter is actually one that I've used in my comp titles before. It's slightly older than I think is probably ideal, but it's definitely a good fit. Reimagining the Great Gatsby, that's kind of interesting. Okay, so let's see if it'll just tell us. 2020. Oh, okay, that was in 2020. Okay, 2020, 2021. Mask of Mirrors, 2021. The Chosen and the Beautiful, 2021. Okay, there are some good ones. Okay, so... Alright, so let's look at these now. Let's see. I know The Bone Jar Daughter is a good comp for my book. I don't know if it's necessarily the best one, but it's one I've been using, so there may be better ones, there may not be. This is book 2 specifically. Oh, this is the sequel to The Wolf of Arnyaro. Okay. Have I read The Jasmine Throne? I can't remember. Okay, so... Ruthless princess, powerful priestess come together to rewrite the fate of an empire. I think this is a maybe. This would have to be more on the, like, vibes scale, right? Because what they're trying to do is a little bit different. This is more trying to tear the empire apart versus trying to save it. Well, yeah, so I'm not sure. This might be a decent fit. It's definitely worth looking into more. I don't think I've actually read this one. I've seen it a lot, and I think it's been on my TBR for a while, but I don't know about you, but my TBR is way too long to ever get to everything on it. So, The Mask of Mirrors. Okay. Revenge plots. I don't know if this is necessarily the best fit for mine. It sounds really good. I have a feeling The Chosen and the Beautiful isn't going to be the best choice just given the name of it. It doesn't sound... Oh, well, this is also like a pretty big book. Okay. No, I don't... This isn't a good fit. The world's just very different. It's a very different kind of world. It's not epic fantasy. The plot line's different. This is not going to be super similar to my book. Okay, but that gives me some new ideas. So I already had the Bone Shard Daughter. And the... That gives me some ideas. And I feel like, especially with the one that's the Wolf of Aran Yarrow and then the Icasar Falcon, that's a series. I could just comp the whole series if the whole series is a good fit. So what now? I feel like I have a decent list of things to try. Okay, I want to do one more search that is going to be similar to the last one, but focusing more on like maybe the world and the vibes, because I feel like that's an important side of it. Like, it's not just the plot. So an adult fantasy novel. Okay, with World on the Brink of Destruction. People save themselves. And what else would give like good vibes tones? Because it's kind of serious. There's a lot going on. I wouldn't say it's overly like lighthearted. It's not. Let's just try that. That actually sounds good. Black Sun by Rebecca. Yeah, actually these sound really good. Actually, let me put them over here on my list. Okay, yes, I think this is pretty good. Okay, so I'm just looking through these really quick. The Witch's Heart is actually probably not a good fit. It's very immersed into like Odin and Loki and like Norse mythology, which I feel like that vibe isn't quite right. Like, this is very fairy tale-esque, which isn't going to give the right plot or vibes or like world building anything for my book. So let's take that out. And then The Once and Future Witches, New York Times bestseller. Probably not really what I want. Late 1800s, use witchcraft to change the fate. The Course of History. So this is like almost, is this alternative history? This sort of reads like an alternative fantasy history, which isn't actually that good of a vibe for what I'm looking for. Light of the Morning Stars. And that was also a little bit too bestsellery. Fantasy history and Jewish folklore. I don't want to get into the folklore vibes. Like, I don't think that's going to be a good for a comp title for my book, because my book does not have any folklore vibes. If yours does, I feel like that's something you should definitely search for, though. Okay, instant New York Times bestseller, named one of the best books of the year. The Gilded Ones is probably too much of a bestseller for me to use. Dark feminist tale. Lives in fear and No, yeah, I don't think I can use that one. Black Sun is from the New York Times bestselling author of Star Wars Resistance Reborn. Is this going to be a good fit? Is this sci-fi? Let's see. Pre-Columbian, inspired by the civilizations of pre-Columbian Americas, which is cool. This is definitely pretty bestseller, but I think maybe it's worth looking into. Yeah, okay, so I feel like that's good. So I think I have a list of things to read and try here. I'm really leaning into the Wolf of Aranyaro. I think that has the potential to be a really, really good fit. Some of these other ones I already have, so like The Priory of the Orange Tree, I already have that book. The Unspoken Name, I feel like is maybe slightly less of a good fit because it seems like it would be a good fit for one of my POV characters, which isn't even like, she's probably the third or like fourth main POV character. So I'm leaning towards that. I'm very interested in Black Sun. I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit too ambitious of a comp title, but I think this is some good ideas. And I think you can really play around with this to get something that works, right? Because you just have to figure out, these are not top bestsellers. Okay, maybe you just need to see not bestsellers at all. But I would probably specify like your market, like, you know, your genres, your age categories, and then maybe try different sides of it, like themes versus the plot versus like the world, that sort of a thing. Anything that like would be in like your pitch maybe seems like it's a lot more effective here. So like if you're inspired by a certain type of like folklore or something like that, it would probably be a good fit. But I think this is awesome. This is a really good way, I think, to get some ideas of things to read, because it's just really hard, especially if you're busy. Like, I have 2 kids, I write, I work full time. I just can't keep up with my TBR list. So it's really hard for me to find things that are super recent and are a good fit. So I think this is pretty awesome of an idea. If you try using ChatGTP to come up with your comp titles and you have other ideas for like how to do the query, you should comment down below, because I'd love to know and love to see that. And I'm excited to, you know, see if I can find some of these books that I don't already have and put them at the top of my reading list for potential comp titles. I'm very excited about this. Yeah, I think there's a whole conversation about, you know, AI and art and all that I don't feel qualified to really talk about specifically. But for things like this, I think AI is really helpful. But yeah, so that was our experiment for today, which I will call a success. And yeah, I'll see you next time.